The lights dimmed in the grand hall of Orbital Station Nexus 7, and soft music filled the air. Hannah Choi stood behind the curtain, checking her appearance one last time. Her black hair was pulled back in a sleek style, and the silver dress she wore seemed to shimmer like starlight. Tonight was the biggest fashion show of the season, and representatives from 12 different alien species had come to watch. "You ready?" Yuna Park asked, adjusting Hannah's dress collar. Yuna had been her agent for 3 years now, and they had become close friends. "The Vraxian ambassador is out there. If he likes the collection, we could get contracts across their entire empire." Hannah smiled softly. "I'm ready. It's just walking, right?" "I can do that." Yuna laughed. "You make it look so easy. That's why everyone loves you." The curtain lifted, and Hannah stepped onto the runway. The platform extended into the center of the hall, and gravity generators created a slight floating effect that made her movements seem even more graceful. As she walked, cameras followed her every step. Alien dignitaries sat in the front rows, their various eyes watching with interest. She could hear whispers as she moved. Some spoke in languages she understood, others in tongues completely foreign to her. But the tone was always the same appreciation, mixed with a hint of dismissal. To them, she was beautiful, but ultimately just a decoration. A pretty human woman who looked nice in expensive clothes. Ambassador Krev, a tall reptilian creature from the Vraxian Empire, leaned toward his aide. "Humans do have a certain aesthetic appeal," he said in his hissing voice. "Though I wonder if beauty is all they're good for. Their military is small, their technology borrowed from others. They survive in this galaxy by being pleasant to look at and easy to ignore." His aide nodded. "They're harmless. Better to have them modeling clothes than trying to compete with real powers." Hannah heard none of this. She completed her walk, turned with perfect precision, and headed back behind the curtain. The show continued for another hour, with models from various species displaying the latest designs. But Hannah was the favorite, the human model who seemed to float rather than walk. After the show, Hannah changed into simpler clothes, comfortable pants, and a soft shirt. She met Yuna at a small cafe on the station's commercial level. The area was busy with people from dozens of worlds, all conducting business or enjoying their free time. "You were perfect tonight," Yuna said, sliding a data pad across the table. "Look at these contract offers. 3 major brands want you for their next campaigns." Hannah glanced at the numbers, but didn't seem excited. "That's good. More work means more stability." Yuna studied her friend's face. "You know, you never talk about your life before modeling. You said you worked in some boring corporate job on Earth, but you never give details. Don't you have family? Old friends?" A shadow crossed Hannah's face for just a moment, but she quickly smiled. "Nothing interesting to tell. I pushed papers around, lived a quiet life, then decided I wanted something different. So I came out here and got lucky." "Lucky?" "Hannah, you're one of the top models in this sector." "That's not luck, that's talent." "Maybe," Hannah said, sipping her drink. "Or maybe I'm just good at pretending to be someone I'm not." Before Yuna could ask what that meant, an announcement echoed through the station speakers. "Attention all personnel. Security alert level elevated to yellow. Unscheduled vessel approaching station. Remain calm and continue normal activities." Yuna frowned. "That's strange. Ships have to get clearance days in advance to dock here." Hannah's expression changed subtly. Her relaxed posture shifted, becoming more alert. Her eyes scanned the cafe, noting exits and the positions of other people. It happened so quickly that Yuna almost missed it. "It's probably nothing," Hannah said, but her voice had an edge to it now. "Just some trader who forgot to file the right papers." They continued talking, but Hannah's attention was divided. She watched the news screens mounted on the cafe walls, saw security personnel moving with more urgency through the corridors. Something was wrong. She could feel it. An hour later, they were walking through the station's garden district, an area filled with plants from various worlds, creating a peaceful oasis in the metal structure. Yuna was talking about upcoming jobs, but Hana's mind was elsewhere. Captain Dae-ho Kin's voice came over the station-wide channel. "All civilians, please return to your quarters. This is a mandatory shelter order. I repeat, return to your quarters immediately." The tone in his voice made Hana stop walking. She knew that tone. It was the voice of someone trying to stay calm while facing serious danger. "We should go," Hana said, pulling Yuna toward the residential section. "What's going on?" Yuna asked, fear creeping into her voice. Before Hana could answer, the lights flickered. Explosions echoed through the station's corridors, muffled but unmistakable. Screams followed, and people began running in all directions. Hana grabbed Yuna's hand and pulled her into a side corridor, away from the panicking crowd. "Stay close to me," she said, her voice completely different, now commanding and certain. They could hear weapons fire getting closer. Heavy footsteps accompanied by harsh voices, shouting in a language Hana recognized as Korthik, a species known for their aggressive nature and criminal enterprises. "Pirates," Hana whispered. "They've boarded the station." Yuna's face went pale. "What do we do?" "We need to hide." Hana looked around, calculating options. Part of her wanted to find a hiding spot and wait for security to handle it. That's what a model would do. That's what someone living a peaceful life would do. But another part of her, a part she had buried deep for years, was already assessing threats and planning responses. That part knew hiding wouldn't be enough. That part remembered what happened when good people hid while bad people acted. "Come on," Hana said, leading Yuna toward the VIP lounge where they had planned to meet with potential clients. "There are more people there. Security will prioritize protecting that area." They reached the lounge just as other guests were arriving, all looking frightened and confused. Among them were several of the alien dignitaries from the fashion show, including Ambassador Krev. The Vraxian looked at the humans with barely concealed contempt. "Of course, humans would panic," he muttered. "No warrior spirit in the entire species." Hana said nothing. She positioned herself and Yuna near a wall, keeping her eyes on the entrance. Her breathing was controlled, her muscles loose but ready. Anyone watching closely would have noticed she no longer moved. Like a model, she moved like someone waiting for a fight. The lounge doors suddenly burst open, and armored figures poured in. They were Korthak warriors, large insectoid creatures carrying advanced weapons. Their leader, a massive specimen with scarred chitin, stepped forward. "Everyone stay where you are," he commanded in heavily accented standard language. "You are now hostages of the Korthak Syndicate. Cooperate, and you might survive." Some people screamed. Others froze in terror. Hana simply watched, her mind already working through possibilities. The Korthak leader's eyes swept across the room, and a cruel smile formed on his mandibles. "Let's show them we're serious," he said to his soldiers. "Pick someone to make an example of." One of the pirates grabbed Yuna, dragging her forward, and in that moment, everything Hana had built over the past 5 years, the peaceful life, the new identity, the distance from violence, all of it shattered like glass. Her eyes went cold, and the model disappeared. The Korthak soldier who grabbed Yuna was named Threx. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his insectoid armor gleaming under the lounge lights. He pulled Yuna to the center of the room and forced her to her knees. His blade, a curved weapon designed for his species, pressed against her throat. "This one will do," Threx announced, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Watch carefully. This is what happens when humans think they can Let her go. The voice came from across the room. It was quiet, but carried such weight that everyone turned to look. Hannah stood near the wall, her posture completely changed. Gone was the gentle curve of her shoulders, the soft expression, the careful grace of a model. She stood straight, feet shoulder-width apart. Hands relaxed at her sides, her eyes were different. Cold, calculating, the eyes of someone who had seen death and delivered it. Threx laughed, a harsh buzzing sound. A human female wants to give me orders? You people truly are stupid. Ambassador Krev watched with interest. Perhaps the human had more spirit than he thought, though spirit without strength was just foolishness. Hannah took 3 steps forward. Each step was measured, purposeful. I'll say it once more. Let her go. Threx's amusement faded, replaced by anger. No one spoke to him like that. He shoved Yuna aside and charged at Hannah, raising his blade for a killing strike. What happened next took less than 3 seconds as Threx swung his blade down. Hannah moved. She didn't just dodge. She flowed like water around the attack. Her right hand caught Threx's wrist, redirecting the blade's momentum. Her left hand struck his elbow joint with surgical precision. The crack of chitin breaking echoed through the silent room. Threx screamed and dropped the blade. Before he could recover, Hannah spun, using his own mass against him. She swept his legs out from under him and drove him face first into the floor. In one smooth motion, she picked up his fallen blade and pressed it against his neck. The entire room stared in shock. The elegant model had just defeated a trained Korthic warrior in hand-to-hand combat. Your armor has 3 weak points, Hannah said calmly, speaking directly to Threx in perfect Korthic battle language. The joint at your left shoulder, the gap below your chest plate, and the soft membrane at the base of your skull, where I'm currently holding this blade. Move and you die. Threx froze. How did a human know his species' anatomical weaknesses? How did she speak the warrior tongue? The other pirates in the room raised their weapons, but Hannah was faster. She grabbed the plasma rifle attached to Threx's back and rolled behind cover, bringing Yuna with her. 2 shots rang out, and 2 pirates dropped before the others could react. Everyone get down. Hannah shouted to the hostages. The diplomats and guests dove for cover as weapons fire filled the lounge. Hannah returned fire with practiced precision, each shot hitting its target. She wasn't spraying bullets wildly like someone panicking. She was aiming, breathing, squeezing the trigger with professional calm. Within 30 seconds, 6 pirates lay unconscious or dead, and the rest had retreated into the corridor. Hannah checked her weapons charge and moved to the door, keeping low. She glanced back at Yuna, who was staring at her with wide, disbelieving eyes. Stay here, Hannah said. Don't move until I come back. Who are you? Yuna whispered. Hannah's expression softened for just a moment. Someone I hoped I'd never have to be again. Then she was gone, disappearing into the corridor after the pirates. Captain Daeho Kim was having the worst day of his career. His security team was outnumbered and outgunned. The pirates had brought military-grade weapons and seemed to know the station's layout perfectly. He had already lost 12 officers, and the enemy was pushing toward the central hub where hundreds of civilians were sheltering. Fall back to checkpoint 7? He ordered into his communicator. We need to buy time for evacuation procedures. Then his second-in-command's voice came through. Captain, something's happening in Section 12. Someone's taking out the pirates. Multiple contacts down. Who? Daeho demanded. Did reinforcements arrive? Negative, sir. It's a single individual. Security cameras show it's a civilian. A woman. Daeho pulled up the camera feed on his datapad. What he saw made his blood run cold, and not from fear, from recognition. A woman in torn civilian clothes was moving through the corridors with military precision. She used corners for cover, checked her angles before advancing, and eliminated pirates with minimal ammunition waste. Her movements were textbook special operations tactics, but it was her face that made Daiho's hands shake. He knew that face. He had seen it covered in blood and dust, lit by weapons fire, 10 years ago, on a border world that had become hell. "Hannah," he whispered. "It can't be. She's dead." But the woman on the screen was very much alive, and she was fighting like the warrior he remembered. Daiho made a decision. "All units, converge on Section 12. We have an ally repeat, friendly in Section 12. Do not fire on the human female. Coordinate with her position." His officers sounded confused, but followed orders. As Daiho moved toward Section 12, memories flooded back. Memories he had tried to forget for a decade. Hana moved through the station like a ghost. The pirates were looking for her now, but she used every trick she had learned in another life. She crawled through maintenance tunnels, dropped from ceiling access points, and struck from angles the enemy never expected. Each pirate she encountered faced someone who knew exactly how to kill efficiently. She didn't enjoy it. Her face remained emotionless, clinical, but she didn't hesitate either. These pirates had come to hurt innocent people. That made the choice simple. A group of 3 pirates was setting up a heavy weapon at an intersection. Hana approached from above, using the ceiling crawl spaces. She dropped down behind them, using a knife she had taken from an earlier encounter. Within seconds, all 3 were neutralized. She was checking their weapons when she heard footsteps. Human footsteps running in military formation. She spun, raising her acquired rifle. "Don't shoot." A voice called out. A familiar voice. Captain Daiho Kim stepped around the corner, hands raised. His security team was behind him, but he signaled them to stay back. He stared at Hana as she stared back. For a long moment, neither spoke. They just looked at each other, 2 people who had shared horror together and thought they would never meet again. "Taeyang?" Hana finally said, using his real name, the name from before. "I go by Daiho now," he replied. "New life. New identity. I thought you were dead, Hana. We all did. I was supposed to be." That was the point. They moved to cover as weapons fire echoed from another corridor. Daiho's team returned fire, keeping the pirates at bay. "How long have you been here?" Daiho asked. 3 years. Working as a model. Living quietly. He almost laughed. "A model? You? The same person who held off 300 Vraxian soldiers for 6 days?" "That person died on Cygnus 12, Hana said quietly. "I became someone else. Someone who didn't have to kill." "Well, she's back now," Daiho said, checking his weapon. "And I'm glad. We need her. There are 50 more pirates in the central hub with high-value hostages. They have heavy weapons and defensive positions. My team can't get close." Hana looked down the corridor toward the central hub. Part of her wanted to run, to hide, to return to being just Hana the model. But Yuna was probably being moved there with the other hostages. And innocent people needed help. She checked her rifle's charge. "What's the layout?" Daiho pulled up a holographic map. 3 entry points, all covered by their guns. The hostages are in the center, surrounded by pirates. Their leader is a big one called himself Vorax the Render. He's personally watching the prisoners. Hana studied the map, and her mind shifted into tactical mode. She saw possibilities, weaknesses, opportunities. "I'll need access to the maintenance systems," she said. "Can you get me in?" Daiho nodded. "What are you planning?" Hana's expression was grim. "What I do best. I'm going to make them afraid. The central hub of Nexus 7 was designed to be beautiful. A massive circular room with transparent walls, showing the stars outside. It served as a gathering place for dignitaries and important meetings. Now it had become a prison. 50 Korthic pirates stood, guard around 70 hostages, who sat on the floor in the center of the room. Among the prisoners were Ambassador Krev, several other alien diplomats, wealthy merchants, and Yuna. They all looked terrified, all except Yuna, who kept scanning the room as if expecting someone. Vorax the Render stood above them on a raised platform. He was massive even by Korthic standards, his chitin armor covered in scars from countless battles. 2 curved blades hung from his back, and his mandibles clicked constantly as he surveyed his prizes. "The station authorities are weak," Vorax announced to his crew. "They cannot stop us. We will take what we want, sell these hostages for profit, and leave this place as a warning to others. The Korthic Syndicate takes what it pleases." His warriors cheered, their voices creating a harsh buzzing sound that made the hostages flinch. What none of them noticed was the small maintenance hatch in the ceiling, far above them, slowly opening. Hana crawled through the narrow tunnel, her body pressed against cold metal. She had removed most of her outer clothing to move more quietly, wearing only a black undershirt and pants. Her face was streaked with grease from the tunnel walls, and she carried a small pack of equipment that D-Ho had provided. She had done this before, 10 years ago, crawling through impossible spaces to reach enemy positions, moving like a ghost through places no one thought a person could go. On Cygnus 12, she and her team had used maintenance tunnels to evacuate civilians while Vraxian soldiers searched for them. The memory was painful, but she pushed it aside. Focus on the present. Save these people first. Regret later. She reached a junction in the tunnel system that gave her a view of the central hub through a ventilation grate. She could see everything, the pirates' positions, their weapons, the hostages. She counted enemies and noted which ones were alert and which were becoming careless. Hana opened her pack and began setting up her first surprise. Small explosive charges, not powerful enough to kill, but perfect for creating chaos. She placed them at key points throughout the tunnel system, all wired to a remote detonator. Then she accessed the station's environmental controls through a maintenance panel. Deho had given her override codes. With a few quick inputs, she began her psychological assault. The lights in the central hub flickered once. Twice it went completely dark. The pirates immediately raised their weapons, shouting to each other in their language. Vorax roared for calm, but his warriors were already nervous. They had expected an easy raid, not whatever this was. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in dim red light. It made the room look like something from a nightmare. "It's just a power failure," one pirate said, trying to sound brave. "These old stations have bad systems." Then the temperature dropped. Rapidly. Within seconds, everyone could see their breath. "Someone is in the environmental controls," another pirate called out. "We should check the system access points." "Stay at your posts," Vorax commanded. "It's a trick to make us scatter." He was right, but knowing it was a trick didn't make it less effective. The pirates grouped closer together, their weapons pointing at every shadow. Hana smiled in the darkness of the tunnels. Fear was a weapon more powerful than bullets. She had learned that from the best warriors in Earth's military, the ones who understood that winning a fight was often about breaking the enemy's will before the first shot. She moved to a different position, this time near one of the peripheral corridors where 3 pirates stood guard. They were separated from the main group, nervous and talking too loudly. Hana dropped down from the ceiling behind them, silent as smoke. Before they could react, she struck. 3 quick hits to pressure points, and all 3 dropped unconscious. She dragged their bodies into the shadows and took their communicators. Now she could hear the pirates chatter. They were getting scared, talking about ghosts and spirits. Perfect. She triggered the first set of explosive charges. The blasts echoed through the station's tunnel system, amplified by the metal corridors. To the pirates, it sounded like something massive was moving through the walls, getting closer. What was that? A pirate shouted. Something in the tunnels. Another responded. Vorex slammed his fist against a console. It's just distraction. Everyone hold position. But two more pirates at the eastern entrance didn't listen. They moved to investigate the sounds. Hana was waiting for them. 2 shots from a silenced weapon, and they fell. She dragged them out of sight and kept moving. She was hunting now, using tactics that Earth's ghost cores had perfected. Strike from nowhere. Disappear. Let the enemy's imagination do the rest of the work. Make them feel like prey. Over the next 30 minutes, Hana eliminated 12 more pirates. Each one disappeared without their comrades knowing what happened. The Korthic warriors began to panic, despite Vorex's orders. They were fighters, yes, but they were used to straightforward combat. This invisible enemy was something they couldn't understand. Who is doing this? One pirate demanded, his voice cracking with fear. The humans don't have warriors like this. Hana heard him through the communicator and almost laughed. They had no idea what humans were capable of when pushed. She moved to her final position, directly above the main group. Through the grate, she could see Vorex was getting frustrated. He had lost a quarter of his force to an enemy he couldn't see. His warriors were jumpy, firing at shadows. Hana accessed the station's speaker system and activated her communicator. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere at once, echoing through the hub. Vorex the Render, she said in perfect Korthic battle language. You have violated sacred ground and threatened the innocent. By the old codes of your people, you must face justice. Every pirate froze. The hostages looked around in confusion. But Vorex's eyes went wide. This human, it had to be a human based on the accent, knew the ancient warrior traditions of his species. Traditions most Korthic had forgotten. Who are you? Vorex roared into the darkness. Show yourself. You wanted warriors to fight, Hana continued, her voice cold. You thought this station was weak. You were wrong. Humans may prefer peace, but we remember how to make war. She triggered the last of her charges. Explosions rocked the tunnel system. Lights flickered, and smoke began pouring from ventilation grates. In the chaos, Hana dropped down from the ceiling into the hub itself. She landed in the center of the pirates, a blade in each hand, weapons she had taken from fallen enemies. Before they could react, she was moving. She didn't try to kill them all. Instead, she struck to disable, to wound, to create more chaos. A pirate swung at her. She ducked under his blade and struck his knee joint. He fell. Another shot at her. She rolled, came up behind him, and hit pressure points that made his arms go numb. His weapon clattered to the floor. It was like watching a dancer. If dancers fought 40 armed warriors at once. Hana moved through them like water, never stopping, never giving them a clear target. She was using the pirates' own numbers against them in the confined space. They couldn't all attack at once without hitting each other. Daeho's security team burst through the entrances at that moment, drawing fire and adding to the confusion. The pirates didn't know where to focus. The invisible ghost had become visible, but was now mixed in with their own people. Security forces were hitting them from 3 directions. Their perfect defensive position had become a trap. Vorex watched his carefully planned raid collapse into chaos. And at the center of it all was one human woman, fighting like something from the old legends his grandmother had told him as a child. The legends of warriors so skilled they seemed like spirits of war themselves. He made a decision. If there was to be any honor salvaged from this disaster, it would come from single combat. He drew his two great blades and raised them high, roaring a challenge in the ancient way. Human warrior, face me in the old circle. Winner takes all. The fighting stopped. Even Daeho's security team held fire. The challenge of single combat was sacred among Korthik. To interrupt it would be a grave insult. Hana stood among the fallen pirates, breathing hard, her clothes torn and bloodied. She looked up at Vorax on his platform. She could refuse. She could let Daeho's team finish this. But she saw the way Vorax's warriors were watching. If she refused, they would fight to the death, and more people would die. If she accepted and won, the old code said the remaining pirates would surrender. Hana dropped her stolen weapons and walked forward, empty-handed. "I accept your challenge, Vorax the Render," she said in his language. "Under the old laws. Single combat. Winner claims victory." Vorax smiled, showing his mandibles. "Finally, a human with courage. Tell me your name before I kill you." Hana's eyes were cold as ice. "Sergeant Hana Choi, Earth Defense Force, Ghost Corps, survivor of Cygnus 12. The name meant nothing to most people in the room. But Ambassador Krev gasped. He knew that name. Everyone in Galactic Intelligence knew about Cygnus 12, the place where 12 human soldiers had held off an army and won. The hostages were moved to the sides of the central hub, creating a clear space in the middle. Vorax descended from his platform, his massive form casting long shadows in the emergency lighting. His two curved blades gleamed as he performed a ritual weapon check, speaking ancient words in his native tongue. Hana stood across from him, unarmed and seemingly small by comparison. But those who looked closely could see she wasn't afraid. She was calculating, measuring, planning. Her eyes tracked every movement Vorax made, studying his stance and grip. Daeho wanted to intervene, to stop this madness, but he knew better. He had seen Hana fight before. On Cygnus 12, she had gone into situations that should have been suicide and walked back out. If anyone could win this, it was her. Yuna watched from the side, tears streaming down her face. She didn't understand what was happening. Her gentle friend, the model who loved beautiful things and peaceful days, was about to fight a monster 3 times. Her sized out Ambassador Krev leaned toward one of his aides. "What do you know of Cygnus 12? He whispered. "A border world conflict 10 years ago," the aide replied quietly. "The Vraxian Empire sent forces to cleanse a human colony. Earth sent a small special operations team to buy time for evacuation. 12 soldiers against a battalion. The humans were supposed to die within hours. And Krev pressed. They held for 6 days. Only 2 survived, but they saved 40,000 civilians. The Vraxian commander was so impressed, he committed ritual suicide rather than face the shame of losing to such a small force. It became a classified incident. Both sides wanted to forget it. Krev's eyes widened. The woman standing before them was one of those 2 survivors. A ghost from a battle that had become legend in military circles. Vorax raised his blades and spoke in standard language so everyone could understand. "By the old codes, we fight until surrender or death. No interference. The winner's cause is judged righteous." "Agreed," Hana said simply. Vorax charged. His speed was incredible for something so large. The blades came down in a killing arc that would have split a normal person in half. Hana wasn't there. She had already moved, sliding to the side at the last possible moment. As Vorax passed, she struck his wrist with an open palm, not trying to hurt him, but testing his reactions. Vorax spun and slashed horizontally. Again Hana ducked under the blow, this time striking his knee joint as she passed. It wasn't a damaging hit, but it made him stumble slightly. The watching pirates murmured among themselves. This human was fast. Vorax attacked again and again, his blades whistling through the air. Each time, Hannah evaded by the narrowest margins. She wasn't trying to win, yet she was learning. Learning his patterns, his timing, the slight tells that came before each attack. On Cygnus 12, she had learned that strength wasn't everything. The Vraxian soldiers had been stronger, better equipped, more numerous. But humans had won because they adapted, because they learned, because they refused to give up even when defeat seemed certain. Vorax began to realize the problem. This human was studying him like a scientist studied an experiment. Every attack he made gave her information. She was turning his own assault into a training session. Fight back! He roared, anger replacing his initial confidence. Not yet, Hannah replied calmly. That was when Vorax made his mistake. Frustrated and angry, he committed fully to a massive overhead strike, putting all his strength into it. The blade came down like a falling star. Hannah moved inside his guard. Instead of dodging away, she stepped forward, so close that the blade passed behind her. She struck upward with her palm, hitting the soft joint where his arm connected to his torso. The impact made his arm go numb, and one blade clattered to the floor. Before Vorax could recover, Hannah grabbed the fallen blade and rolled away. Coming up armed for the first time, the fight had changed. Now they were both armed, but Hannah evened the odds. Vorax attacked more carefully now, respecting his opponent. His remaining blade clashed against hers, the sound ringing through the silent hub. They exchanged a series of strikes and parries, testing each other's skill. Hannah's training came from Earth's best weapons masters, people who had studied combat styles from dozens of worlds. She had learned how to fight Korthic warriors, how their anatomy affected their movement, where their armor was strongest and weakest. She began to exploit those weaknesses. A strike at an angle that was hard for his joints to block. A feint toward his head that forced him to raise his blade high, exposing his lower body. Small cuts that didn't do much damage, but accumulated, slowing him down. Vorax realized he was losing. This shouldn't be possible. He was a champion of his people, undefeated in over 50 challenges. How was a human a species everyone dismissed as weak defeating him? "You can't be human," he gasped, breathing hard. "What are you?" Hannah's expression was grim. "I'm what humans become when you leave us no choice. We don't want to be warriors. We want to create, to build, to live peacefully. But when you threaten what we love, we remember that survival isn't pretty." She pressed her attack, moving faster now. Her blade found the weak points in his armor, the joints, the gaps, the places where chitin didn't quite overlap. Each strike was precise, calculated to disable rather than kill. Vorax's movements became sluggish, blood-green and thick-dripped from a dozen wounds. His armor was cracked in several places. His remaining blade felt heavy in his hand. Hannah saw the moment he broke, saw the defeat enter his eyes. She could have killed him then. One thrust to the throat, and it would be over. Instead, she stepped back and lowered her blade. "Yield," she said. Not a question, a command. Vorax stared at her. In that moment, he understood. This human warrior was showing him mercy. She had beaten him completely, proven her superiority, but she wasn't taking his life. It was the action of a true warrior, one who fought with honor. Slowly, Vorax lowered his blade and dropped to one knee. "I yield," he said in his language. Then in standard, "I yield. The human has won." A collective gasp went through the room. The Korthic pirates immediately dropped their weapons. By the old codes, if their champion fell, they were bound to surrender. It was the way of their ancestors, a tradition stronger than any other law. Deho's security team quickly moved in, securing the pirates. But there was no resistance. The Korthik warriors allowed themselves to be restrained, their eyes on Hana with a mixture of fear and respect. Hana dropped the blade and immediately went to where the hostages sat. She found Yuna and pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm sorry," Hana whispered. "I'm so sorry you had to see that." Yuna was crying, her hands clutching Hana's torn shirt. "You saved us. You saved all of us. But who are you really?" Hana pulled back, looking into her friend's eyes. "I'm the same person I've always been. I used to be someone else before. Someone I ran away from." Ambassador Krev approached, his aide following nervously. The Vraxian diplomat looked at Hana with new eyes that held respect rather than dismissal. "Sergeant Hana Choi of Ghost Corps," Krev said formally. "I owe you an apology. I called your species weak and decorative. I was blind and foolish." Hana shook her head. "You weren't wrong to want peace over war, Ambassador. The mistake was thinking that choosing peace means we've forgotten how to fight. Humans remember everything. We just choose to use our memories wisely." Medical teams rushed in, treating the wounded, both hostages and the surviving pirates. Hana's own wounds were numerous, but not serious. Cuts, bruises, and exhaustion. Nothing that wouldn't heal. Deho approached, his expression a mixture of pride and sadness. "You still move like it was yesterday," he said quietly. "Like we never left that battlefield." "I think part of us never did," Hana replied. "We just learned to live around it. What will you do now?" Dai-Ho asked. "After this, everyone knows what you are. The peaceful life is over." Hana looked around the central hub, at the hostages being freed, at the pirates being taken into custody, at Yuna watching her with confusion and concern, at the news crews that were already broadcasting footage of the battle across the station. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I'm tired of hiding. Maybe it's time to figure out what comes after." The security team finished securing the area. The hostages were being evacuated to safety. The crisis was over. But for Hana, something else was just beginning. As she walked through the corridors toward medical treatment, she heard whispers following her, heard people pointing and talking. The story was already spreading, how a human model had fought off 50 pirates, how she had defeated their champion in single combat. Some whispers held awe, others held fear. All of them held respect. Ambassador Krev watched her go, then turned to his aide. "Send a message to our government. Tell them we need to revise our assessment of humanity. They are not weak. They are not helpless. They are warriors who chose peace. There is a significant difference." The aide nodded and began composing the message. It would be the first of many such messages sent throughout the galaxy that day. The incident at Nexus 7 would become known as the Revelation, the day when the other species realized what humans truly were. Not warriors, not pacifists, but something in between. Something more dangerous because it was unpredictable. Something that valued peace but would unleash war when necessary. Something that couldn't be easily categorized or dismissed. The medical bay was crowded with injured people from the attack. Hana sat on an examination table while a doctor, a kind alien with too many eyes, treated her wounds. Most were minor cuts and bruises, nothing that wouldn't heal quickly. The doctor kept glancing at her nervously, clearly aware of who she was now. Yuna stood nearby, refusing to leave despite Hana's suggestions that she should rest. Her friend looked tired, but determined to understand what had happened. "How long were you a soldier?" Yuna asked quietly. Hana stared at the floor. 8 years. I joined Earth Defense Force when I was 18. Made it into Ghost Corps when I was 22. Cygnus 12 happened when I was 25. She paused. I was supposed to die there. We all were. When I survived, I couldn't keep doing it. So I became someone else. But you can never really stop being what you were, Una said. It wasn't a question. No, Hannah agreed. You can't. You just build a new life on top of the old one and hope the foundation doesn't crack. She looked up at her friend. I'm sorry I lied to you. About everything. Una was quiet for a moment, then sat down next to Hannah on the table. You didn't lie. You just didn't tell me everything. There's a difference. She took Hannah's hand. You're still the same person who helped me when I was struggling, who listened to my problems, who laughed at bad jokes and loved beautiful things. You're just more than I knew. Hannah felt tears sting her eyes. She had been so afraid that Una would hate her, or fear her, or see her as something monstrous. But her friend saw her as she truly was, complicated, flawed, but still herself. The door to the medical bay opened, and several people in formal clothing entered. They carried identification that marked them as officials from Galactic Intelligence Services and Earth Defense Force. Hannah recognized the type. Immediately recruiters looking for talent. The lead official, a stern human man with gray hair, approached with a datapad. Sergeant Choi, I'm Commander Park Min-ho from Earth Defense Force. Your actions today have been reviewed. We want you to return to active duty immediately. Ghost Corps is being reformed as a public unit, and we need experienced operatives. Before Hannah could respond, a GIS representative stepped forward, a smooth-talking alien with diplomatic bearing. Actually, Sergeant Choi's skills would be better utilized in our organization. We handle threats across multiple sectors. The pay is excellent, and the work is varied. Hannah listened to both offers without expression. They spoke about duty, about using her skills, about the good she could do. They weren't wrong. She was exceptional at what she did. She could help people, could stop threats, could make a difference. But she had already made that choice once, and it had nearly destroyed her. No, she said simply. Both recruiters looked shocked. No? Commander Park repeated. Sergeant, you have a duty. I fulfilled my duty, Hannah interrupted, her voice firm. I served 8 years. I bled for humanity. I watched my friends die. I earned the right to choose my own path, and I'm choosing to say no. The GI's representative tried a different approach. Think of all the people you could save. Your talents are mine to use as I see fit, Hannah finished. I'm not a weapon you can point at problems. I'm a person who wants to live her own life. Commander Park's expression hardened. After what happened today, you can't just go back to being a model. Everyone knows what you are now. Then I'll figure out something else, Hannah said. But I'm done being a soldier. For anyone. The recruiters tried to argue more, but Hannah remained firm. Finally, they left, clearly disappointed, but unable to force her. Earth didn't conscript its people, and she had fulfilled her service contract years ago. Una squeezed her hand. What will you do? If you're not modeling anymore? Hannah thought about it. I don't know yet, but it'll be my choice this time. Over the next few days, Nexus 7 slowly returned to normal operations. The pirates were taken into custody. Repairs began on damaged sections. But the atmosphere had changed. Humans walked differently, now with more confidence. And other species watched them with new awareness. Hannah received hundreds of messages. News organizations wanted interviews. Governments wanted statements. People wanted her story. She ignored most of them, still processing everything herself. Captain Dae-ho Kim visited her quarters on the 3rd day after the attack. He looked tired but satisfied. The Korthic prisoners are being transferred to a proper detention facility. Vorex asked to speak with you before he leaves. Hannah was surprised but agreed. They went to the security wing where the pirate leader was being held. He looked smaller somehow, without his armor and weapons. Just a tired warrior, facing the consequences of his choices. "Why did you spare me?" Vorax asked when Hannah entered. "You could have killed me." "Should have, by combat logic." Hannah sat down across from him, separated by a security barrier. "Because killing you wouldn't have changed anything. You lost. You surrendered. Taking your life after that would have been murder, not justice." Vorax was quiet for a long moment. "My people will hear of this. How a human warrior defeated me with honor. It will change how they see your species." "Good," Hannah said. "Maybe it'll make them think twice before attacking civilians." "May I ask you something?" Vorax said. "When we fought, you knew my people's old codes." "How?" Hannah smiled slightly. "When I was in Ghost Corps, I studied every species we might face. Your history, your culture, your fighting styles. Not to hate you, but to understand you. Because if I understood you, I could find ways to avoid fighting you. And when I had to fight, I could do it effectively." "That is the thinking of a true warrior," Vorax said with respect. "Not one who seeks glory, but one who seeks to protect." After leaving Vorax, Hannah and Deho walked through the repaired commercial district. People stopped to stare at her, to whisper. Some looked afraid. Others looked grateful. All looked at her differently than before. "This is going to be your life now," Deho said. "Always watched. Always judged. Always remembered for what you did." "I know," Hannah replied. "But maybe that's not entirely bad. Maybe I can use it for something good." "What do you mean?" Hannah stopped walking and looked at the diverse crowd around them. Humans, aliens, all living together on this station. Security forces are trained to react to threats, but they're not trained well enough to prevent them or to handle situations like what happened. What if I taught them not to be soldiers, but to be protectors? Deho's eyes lit up. A training program. Defensive tactics, threat assessment, crisis management. Exactly. I don't want to be a soldier anymore, but I can help others learn to defend themselves and the people they care about. That's different. That's building instead of destroying. Over the following weeks, Hannah worked with Deho and station leadership to create a comprehensive training program. She would teach security personnel from across the sector how to handle threats effectively while minimizing casualties. It would be teaching, not fighting. Preparation, not warfare. The program attracted immediate interest. Other stations wanted similar training. Defense forces from multiple species requested her expertise. Hannah found herself creating something new, a way to use her skills that didn't require her to return to the battlefield. Yuna became her business manager, helping coordinate the growing program. Their friendship had deepened, built on complete honesty now. Yuna understood that Hannah was complicated, capable of both beauty and violence, peace and war, and she accepted all of it. One evening, Hannah stood on an observation deck overlooking the stars. Ambassador Krev found her there, standing quietly. "I wanted to thank you again," the Vraxian said. "You saved my life and taught me a valuable lesson about humans." "What lesson is that?" Hannah asked. "That strength comes in many forms. That choosing peace doesn't mean forgetting how to fight. That humans are dangerous, not because they're violent by nature, but because they can be anything they need to be." He paused. "My government is changing its policies toward humanity. We're treating Earth as an equal power now, not a minor species to be managed." "That's good," Hannah said. "Maybe it'll prevent future conflicts." Krev nodded. "I heard about your training program. You're still fighting, in a way. Just fighting to prevent war, rather than to win it." "That's the best kind of fight," Hannah replied. Months passed. Hannah's training program expanded across 12 stations. Security forces that completed her courses showed dramatic improvements in threat response and crisis management. Pirate attacks decreased as criminals learned that stations were better defended. Hana still modeled occasionally. Now for a new fashion line called Duality. It combined elegant design with practical function. The clothes were beautiful, but included hidden armor plating and emergency features. They represented what she had learned, that people could be many things at once, that beauty and strength weren't opposites. On the anniversary of the Nexus 7 attack, the station held a memorial service for those who had died. Hana attended quietly, standing in the back. She didn't consider herself a hero. She had just done what needed to be done, using skills she had tried to leave behind. After the service, a young human girl approached her shyly. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. "Are you Sergeant Choi?" the girl asked. "Just Hana," Hana replied gently. "My mom says you're the bravest person in the galaxy, that you saved everyone." Hana knelt down to the girl's level. "I just helped. Captain Kim and his team saved people too. The doctors who treated everyone. The engineers who fixed the station. Bravery comes in many forms. But you fought the pirates. You weren't scared." Hana smiled sadly. "I was terrified. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do what needs to be done, even when you are afraid." The girl thought about this, then hugged Hana suddenly. "Thank you for protecting us." As Hana watched the girl run back to her mother, she felt something settle inside her. She had spent so long running from her past, trying to be someone different. But maybe the answer wasn't to be one thing or another. Maybe the answer was to accept that she was both the warrior and the civilian, the model and the fighter, the person who loved peace and the person who could wage war. That evening, Hana stood on her apartment balcony, looking out at the stars. Yuna joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. "You look peaceful," Yuna observed. "I think I'm starting to be," Hana replied. "For a long time, I thought I had to choose between who I was and who I wanted to be. But maybe I can be both. Maybe that's what makes us human. We contain multitudes." Deep thoughts for a Thursday evening. Yuna teased. Hana laughed. "Sorry, I'm just realizing that running from your past doesn't work. You have to integrate it, accept it, and build something new with it." News channels across the sector still discussed the Nexus 7 incident. It had become a turning point in how humans were perceived. No longer dismissed as weak or decorative, humanity was now seen as complex and capable. Dangerous when threatened, but preferring peace when possible. Other humans across the galaxy found themselves treated with new respect. The assumption of human weakness had been shattered. Now, when humans spoke in diplomatic meetings, others listened. When human security officers gave orders, they were obeyed. But the lesson worked both ways. Humans also learned that they couldn't hide from who they were. They were a species that could create beautiful art and wage terrible war. That could choose peace, but remember violence. That could be kind and compassionate, yet ruthlessly effective when survival demanded it. Hana's program eventually trained over 5,000 security personnel from 18 different species. The techniques she taught based on de-escalation, preparation, and efficient response became standard across multiple sectors. Violence didn't disappear, but it decreased significantly. She never returned to active military service. She never picked up a weapon unless teaching someone else how to use it properly. She had made her choice and stuck to it, proving that warriors could lay down their arms without losing what made them strong. Years later, Hana would be interviewed by a documentary filmmaker about the Nexus 7 incident. She would say, "Everyone saw a model and thought they knew my whole story. They didn't realize that people are complicated. We can be many things, creators and destroyers, artists and warriors, peaceful citizens and protectors. What happened that day wasn't about me being special. It was about being human. And being human means being capable of anything when what you love is threatened. That's not something to fear. It's something to respect. The documentary ended with footage of Hannah teaching a class, her students hanging on every word. Then it cut to her walking a fashion runway, graceful and elegant. Two sides of the same person. Both real. Both true. The final shot was Hannah standing on that observation deck, looking at the stars, a slight smile on her face. The narration spoke over the image. In the end, Hannah Choi didn't have to choose between peace and strength. She proved that humans don't have to.